Hey, welcome back to the Urban Monk, Dr. Pedram Shojai in studio. Finally, I've been doing so much Skype. It feels good to have like a human person in here in studio with me. My new really great friend who I got to hang out with at one conference and was like, oh, you're with me. Emily Fletcher, she is a meditation genius because she could translate meditation into normal speak. So her company is called Ziva Meditation. We're going to do some meditation stuff, but we're mostly here to just have fun and unpack some of the weird kind of spiritual, convoluted, knotted lingo around this stuff and really just talk about what's real. So hi.
Hello, friend.
Hi, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So you didn't come from some ashram lineage. You didn't come from some thing where it's like, oh, I've done this my whole life. You came from Broadway. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years of it.
10 years of it. What were you doing on Broadway?
I did The Producers, Chicago, A Chorus Line, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 42nd Street, you name it, I did it.
What did you do? Like, what were you?
I was singing and dancing and acting.
Singing and dancing and acting.
Yeah. Just lots of fishnets, lots of heels, lots of fake lashes, lots of red lipstick.
Yeah, any slip and falls?
One time in Moscow, I was doing a show in Moscow and I had this entrance and it was like a big lead up. I mean, imagine 17 men like building, changing keys, and then I'm the first woman out just in this beautiful gown, and I come out and then wham!
Oh, yes.
I tripped over a doorway and just ate it. And it was really embarrassing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you have to, right? Like if you've run enough miles, you're gonna fall.
That's right.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So you're on Broadway, and it's stressful. Broadway's not easy.
It's 8 shows a week, 6 days a week. So you have Mondays off. But
wait, 8 shows a day, 6
8
days?
shows a week. So you do a show every day, and then 2 on Saturday, 2 on Wednesday. You have
Got it.
Monday off, and then you're back at it on Tuesday. So it's not a joke. It's fun, but it's hard work.
Wow. And so you're on the road mostly, or?
Well, I did do a few tours. I did a show in Moscow, China, Japan, and I did 3 national tours in addition to the shows I did on Broadway in New York. And so when you're touring, you travel on your one day off. Because that's relaxing. Okay, so at what point do you go, hey, wait a minute, I need to probably do something to bring it down? So it was all sunshine and roses, like it was great. And then my last Broadway show was A Chorus Line, and I was understudying 3 of the lead roles, which means you show up to the theater and you have no idea who you're going on for. Sometimes I would start the show as one character, halfway through they switch me to a different one, which like, hi, I'm 5'9" with red hair, like I'm not hiding on stage. The audience was very confused. And sometimes I would just be chilling in my dressing room doing my taxes, and someone would say, Emily Fletcher, we need you on stage. And I would start panicking. I would grab all 3 costumes, run down 7 flights of stairs. Someone would throw me in a costume, and I'm not kidding. Sometimes I would be on stage before I knew which character I was playing. I'd be like, oh, there's no Val, and into a 6-page song, which is just really kind of terrifying.
Whoa.
Some people are good at it. I am not one of them. And so I was basically living my life in this constant state of anxiety. And even if I wasn't on, I was terrified that I was going to be thrown on. So,
because at any given moment, you could be doing your taxes and then be on.
Exactly, like within 30 seconds.
Wow.
So you have to constantly be ready. And 2 of the roles I was very good at. One of them I was awful at, like just really bad at. And that was the one I always went on for. And it's embarrassing to be on a stage with 3,000 people looking at you in a leotard and sucking at your job and knowing that you're sucking. And then the more stressed you get, the worse your performance is. And then the worse my performance was, the worse my sleep was. And it just became this downward spiral where I started having insomnia for about 18 months. I started going gray at 26 years old, which is not great when you're an actress. I started getting sick, started getting injured. And I was like, wait a minute, why am I living my dream and miserable? So thankfully, there was a woman sitting next to me in the dressing room. She was understudying 5 of the lead roles, which to this day, I don't know how she did it, but she was crushing it. I mean, every song this woman sang was a celebration, and every dance she did was a celebration. And finally, I was like, lady, what do you know that I don't know?
Yeah, come on, out with it.
Yeah, give it to me. And she's like, I meditate. And I was like, come on.
Yeah.
This is 10 years ago, right? So there wasn't the neuroscience then that there is now. It wasn't as popular then as it is now. And so I didn't really believe her. So I just kept sucking at my job and going gray and having insomnia. And then finally it got so bad, I didn't even feel like myself anymore. So I decided, well, what do I have to lose? So
Fine. Help me.
Give me bliss and fulfillment. And so I went to this like intro to meditation talk, liked what I heard, signed up for this 4-day course. And the first day of the first class, I was meditating. I had no idea what that meant, but I was in a different state of consciousness that I'd ever been in before, and I liked it. And then that night, I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. And I have every night since, and that was 10 years ago.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
What kind of meditation? Was it like a specific lineage? I'm a geek for this kind of stuff, so I'm just curious.
Yeah, so...
Like what works for redheads?
So it's called, like the Sanskrit word is Nishkam Karma Yoga, which basically means union attained by action hardly taken, which I like to call the lazy man's meditation. But it is the Shankaracharya lineage, it's a Saraswati lineage. What's unique about it is that it was actually designed for people with busy minds and busy lives. So it's actually not a monastic practice. It's not a derivative of something that was made for monks. Even though it's 6,000 years old, it was actually designed for people with busy minds and busy lives. And I think that that's why I took to it so quickly. And I've taught like 3,500 people to meditate now. And people within hours, within days, they start to notice shifts in themselves. And it's not the kind of thing where you have to stop drinking Jack Daniels, or you have to stop having sex, or you have to move to a cave. It's like, you can just do it at your office, in a conference room, or on a plane, or on a bus.
Does it look weird, or you?
It just looks kind of like this.
Like you're napping.
Yeah, it looks like you're taking like a little snooze on the train.
But what's happening inside?
Infinite bliss and fulfillment. What's happening inside?
Results not always guaranteed.
Well, when I say bliss, I think it's important to note that I don't actually mean happiness. When I say bliss, I mean the piece of you that knows that it's all okay. And it's possible to experience bliss even when you're sad, even when you're angry, even when you're tired. There's still a little piece of you that knows that everything's going to be okay. And what I find is that the more you meditate, the bigger this background of bliss becomes, which actually paradoxically frees you up to feel the entire spectrum of emotions. You know, when you're terrified that you're going to be overwhelmed with this tsunami of feeling, it's very easy to be like, not now, I'm fine. But once your body knows that it has a repeatable, sustainable means by which to access fulfillment and bliss in the only place that it resides, which is inside of you, then you actually are much safer to feel the entire spectrum of whatever's going on for you in that moment, and then move through to the new now.
So when you experience it the first time, was it just like, whoa, like, holy crap, what is this? Or, oh, this is interesting?
It wasn't that moment. I've had those moments. I've had, you know, in my 10-year career of meditating, I've had some shifts and some big leaps, but it wasn't like the first day, like, I'm enlightened. You know, for
Red
most,
Sea just parted.
No, for most people, it's like a gentle shedding of skin. You know, it's just each meditation, you're shedding layers of stress. You're coming back to more and more you, more and more your true nature, which I really believe is 24-hour-a-day bliss. But my first day, it was this is different. This isn't waking, it isn't sleeping, and it isn't dreaming. It's something different, and I like it. But then the crazy thing for me was that night, I really, truly slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. And then it cured my insomnia. Like, it was just gone. And if that's the only thing that meditation had done for me, it would have been worth it.
Are you kidding? Slam dunk.
Yeah, but then it was like I started getting better at my job. I stopped going gray. I'm 37 years old now. I have like 2 gray hairs. I was legitimately going gray a decade ago. I used to get sick 4 or 5 times a year, and then I went 8.5 years without getting sick. I started getting better at my job. My relationships got better. So it was like, why does everybody not do this? So I left Broadway, went to India, and trained. I started a 3-year training process to teach this.
Wow. So, quick question about the Broadway part. Even the sucky role?
Did I get better at that?
Did you get better at the sucky role?
Well, to be honest, I don't have a data point on that, because I learned meditation. I had 4 days off between Chorus Line Broadway and then Chorus Line tour. And on the tour, I originated the role that I was very good at. I played Sheila on the first national tour. So like, in addition to meditation, my job actually did get better. But I mean, Chorus Line Broadway was the worst job I've ever had. And then Chorus Line tour was the best job I've ever had until this one. So I don't think that was just a circumstantial change. I think it was both internal and external.
Sure. Well, the universe just pivoted for you too. Okay, so India.
Yeah.
That's an interesting place. What was that? You were just like, hey, this has changed my life. I need to go drink from the fountain. Like, did something change? You follow a boy? Like, what happened?
Yeah, it changed my life. I wanted to drink from the fountain. I really was like, I don't understand why everyone doesn't do this thing. And so I When the first time I went to India, it was just, I wanted to learn more. I went on a personal retreat for myself. But when I got there, that's when I decided I definitely wanted to teach it. But I figured, you know what, I'll do it later, like when I'm not acting anymore, when I'm not dancing anymore. But life very quickly showed me where my talents were needed.
What just kept you there?
No, I didn't stay there, but I sort of arrogantly thought that I would be able to act and teach meditation and teach acting, and then very quickly, like my agents would be like, hey, can we have headshots and resumes? And it would take me 3 months to get them to them. Meanwhile, I was teaching hundreds of people to meditate. So it became clear like where my priorities were. So I decided to go all in with Ziva.
Great. Well, and you're helping so many people.
It feels really good.
Yeah. So it's so weird, right? People are like, I don't want to do this thing. It's weird. I'm Christian, or I'm this, or I'm that, and like people just have so many layers of defense around this thing that they're afraid of, right? You didn't come from some sort of woo-woo hippie thing.
No,
right?
I grew up Southern Baptist, actually. And what I like to say about meditation is that it's more of a hardware upgrade versus a software upgrade. Like I would even call religions, they're a belief system. So it's like an operating system. It's a way that you operate in your life in your waking state. Whereas meditation to me is more like defragging the computer, right? It's like up-leveling your actual hard drive so that you can run whatever software that you have. So I think if you're a Christian, it's going to make you a better Christian. I think if you're a Jew, it's going to make you a better Jew. I think if you're atheist, we're probably going to talk in about 3 months, just because like once you start meditating, you start noticing all of this serendipity and synchronicity, and you start to see there's something at play here. What people call that thing, I have no real interest in. I just have interest in the fact that they experience it. Because it's
and the
lovely.
commonality of experience is constantly there, right? Like, hey, yeah, this thing that happened, oh yeah, I had a similar thing, right? And it's not like there's some database that everyone looks at and says, oh, let me go draw upon my meditation experience to share with my buddies.
Yet.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yet. You working on it?
I'm not, but I'm sure someone is.
Dave
like,
Asprey should.
All the data monitoring devices, like we'll have that data soon enough.
Yeah, totally. It's funny because we had a couple gentlemen last round on the show, both like normal people, right? A PhD in chemistry and a medical doctor, near-death experiences. And like the amount of data that comes through of people that are like, yeah, I kind of, I was getting a surgery and I was looking down at my body and oh shit, there it was. And then I went through this thing. It's the stories are very similar, right? To the point where it's creepy, right? It's like, how are these people, like, are they all huddled up and like collaborating, or is there some sort of corroborating is the word I was looking for, or is there something that they're now witnessing? So now you witnessed this thing and you couldn't help but jump in and say, yo, I got to teach this.
Exactly.
Yeah. What does that look like? Like, do you go to the people that were like you and say, hey, listen, I know you're stressed out and I got a solution for you? Like, who knows, who do you go to teach meditation, or do they come to you?
Well, because I had been on Broadway for so long, and because I had actually become an acting teacher, so I had a pretty big following of acting students, and so I started there. I started teaching my acting students, and I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I've never seen anything that improves an acting performance, or really just performance in general, the meditation. I mean, these people would take such leaps in their work. They would become so much less self-conscious, so much more creative, so much more present, which is everything that every acting teacher teaches, but this was happening sort of spontaneously and effortlessly for them. And then once one actor's work would get so better, everyone else in class was like, what happened?
Competitive advantage.
Yes, it's totally a competitive advantage. And so I started there, and I had a bunch of, like Broadway friends and celebrity friends that I just been friends with through the years, and you teach enough celebrities to meditate, and then, they tweet about it, and then it's on. And then thankfully I got invited to speak at Harvard Business School, which is where I met Dave Asprey. And he invited me on his podcast to speak at his conference. And then I got invited to speak at Google. And, so you get a few of those under your belt. And I was fortunate enough to do that pretty early. And then it starts to snowball. And now it was a big day for me, the day that I had a course with no actors in it, because I was like, I guess it's not just my acting students anymore. And now it's all types of people. But really at Ziva, what we specialize in is meditation for better performance. So I tend to attract high achievers, high performers, people that aren't necessarily dealing with some horrible suffering thing. Some people come when they're, at rock bottom, but oftentimes it's people that just want that competitive advantage. People that want to feel better, that want to enjoy their lives more.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all of us, but we might not know it, right?
Yeah.
Some people don't realize that they're not upping their game enough to be able to kind of work through life's stuff. And others are just like, listen, I got a sales job, and the clearer I am, the more money shows up in my bank account. Or I run a company, and I just can't keep my life together and run my company because I'm scattered, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you realize that you are the roadblock in your own life, then man, anything's an option. And meditation, I've had a lot of billionaires who are very normal people come to me and say, hey, will you please teach me this, right? And it's hard. It's hard not to see it when you get in your own way, right? But people who don't know that they're in their own way, that's kind of a different subclass, right? Like you once you recognize it, then you go chasing after it. Like,
yes.
Help me.
Yeah, like running downhill towards enlightenment. Like what I don't understand is people who are like, well, I don't have time to meditate, or I'm too busy to meditate. I'm like, this is your brain that we're talking about. This thing is responsible for producing every single cell in your body, for every single decision that you make, every dollar that you earn, every orgasm that you have, every sentence that you speak is coming from here. So to not invest the time to maintain this machine is mind-boggling to me. Like I really don't get it.
Yeah, but most of us don't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just need
we'll
to
take our computer to the shop, but not our brains.
Not our brain. Well, and you couldn't really see it before. There wasn't brain imaging. There wasn't the stuff. There was these people talking about it, but the hippies made it a little weird,
Yes.
and you know what I'm saying. It got really like convoluted with cultural stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can't just meditate. You got to dress like this guy, and you got to
wear
wear
some
patchouli.
incense,
Yeah, and it's just it became this kind of like cultural identity that has nothing to do with meditation, right? And so how long do you spend a day? Like what's your minimum kind of recommendation?
Well, for me personally, if I'm not teaching, I'll do 20 minutes twice a day. So I'll do it in the morning before breakfast, and I'll do it some point before my evening meal. When I'm teaching, sometimes it'll be 4 or 5 times a day if I have lots of classes. But minimum for me is 20 minutes twice a day. And then if I'm flying, I'll do more, which honestly, the jet lag transformation that happens when you meditate, I'll do like takeoff and landing in addition to my other sessions. And it's really remarkable that you can land somewhere and actually feel fresh.
Well, and plus it's like, what are you going to do? Sit there and watch another dumb movie Hollywood threw at you, or do something good for yourself?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, like I do not let like that downtime become wasted time.
Yes.
Period, right? Once you learn how to meditate, you always have a place to go to draw from infinity, right?
That's a beautiful phrase, draw from infinity. Maybe that could be your 4th book.
Thank you. Yeah, totally. Well, it's the Urban Monk. I wanted to name Drinking from Infinity, right? And so I think the next book that's going to be in the title somewhere, but I don't know. I love the idea of being able to stop time and go in, right? And so the auspices under which we met is. She was guiding a group with JJ Virgin's thing, and so I'm in the group, and she comes up and she just starts doing it, and every single piece of her meditation gestalt was spot on, in my opinion, of like exactly where, like the fundamentals that need to be addressed without all the kind of woo-woo. And so I was like, friend, like you, right? And it was very simple. It was, using the senses to come in and all that. So let's talk about the gestalt of it. Like what are the philosophies behind what you're teaching?
So there's kind of 2 things that I do. One, and what we do at Ziva, and what I really pride myself on, is making people self-sufficient. So when people move through my training, by the time they graduate, they have a practice to take with them for life. They don't need me anymore.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, and they have access to me if they need support, but the idea is that any tool is only as good as if you actually use it. And I can't be on the plane with you every time you fly. So I really like to train people to be self-sufficient. Now, what I do at like corporations or conferences when I'm leading a guided meditation is something different, because people don't have 10 hours. So I can't train them in 20 minutes that I have on stage. So in those instances, I'll usually start with something called balancing breath, which is really just an alternate nostril pranayama breathing, where you're closing the right and left nostrils, helps to balance the right and left hemispheres of the brain, and it slows down the metabolic rate, which is the rate with which the body consumes oxygen. The way I think about breath work is like pulling the bow back on the bow and arrow, so that when the body's ready to surrender into the meditation, it can. And then usually I'll lead people through something I call come to your senses, which is just simply walking through, like, hear what you're hearing, feel what you're feeling, see what you're seeing, taste what you're tasting, smell what you're smelling. And that allows people to pull the lens of their awareness back and include everything that's happening inside of the meditation, instead of trying to like focus in or be like, oh, there's a truck outside, or my baby's crying, or people, I think, get frustrated with the noises. They think of them as distractions, when actually I want them to include everything in. And then we do something I like to call the M word technique, which is like dipping your toe into silence, because silence freaks people out sometimes, because usually there's a lifetime of trauma that starts raging up and out. And so I just dip the toe in for a moment, a little silent practice called the M word, and then I love to end with gratitude. And an interesting neuroscience study came out a few weeks ago, maybe months at this point, but they said that even if you don't have anything to be grateful for, even if you can't think of one thing to give thanks for, just you asking the question is enough to change the chemistry of your brain. And I thought that was pretty powerful. So what am I grateful for? And then it starts to reprogram your brain to look for everything that's going right, instead of training your brain to look for problems to solve, which most of us are a little too adept at.
Let's talk about the problems to solve piece, because a lot of people in the West feel like they fail at meditation because they're not stopping their mind.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God damn it, I had another thought. Such a loser, my dad was right. Right? And it's just this kind of compounding neurosis that builds on it. So let's talk about not needing to do that, maybe?
Yes, please, let's. Okay, so I don't know who this dude is. Maybe between the two of us we can find him, but there's like one dude going around telling everyone that in order to meditate, you have to clear your mind. It's probably the person that's wearing patchouli and incense.
100%. While he's outside smoking cigarettes in his breaks. Right?
Yeah, totally. So in my personal experience, and at least in the trainings that I've had and the traditions that I've studied, your efficacy of meditation has nothing to do with how good you are at giving your brain a command to be silent. Okay, so notice I'm not saying that you can't stop your mind, because it is possible to stop time. It is possible to access other states of consciousness.
Down the line.
Yes, but what is challenging, certainly for a beginner, is to sit down and be like, okay, brain, stop thinking. And then most people are like, I sure would like a snack. I love snacks. Oh wait, that's a thought. Oh no, now I'm thinking. Oh no, I'm thinking about how I'm thinking. Oh, I'm the worst meditator in the world, and I quit.
I wonder if they're watching me.
And then we feel like, we feel like a failure, to your point, and then that's the beginning and the end of most people's meditation career. So I'm on a bit of a mission to really reframe this for people. I think the thing that is important to take away is that the mind thinks involuntarily, just like the heart beats involuntarily. So let's all imagine how ridiculous it would be to sit down and be like, okay, heart, stop beating. Or okay, nails, stop growing. Like, that's not up to us. And we see that as ridiculous, and yet this is the criteria by which most people are judging their meditations.
Yeah.
And so what I give people a lot of permission to do is just know that you're going to have thoughts. You're absolutely going to have thoughts when you meditate. Some of them you're going to enjoy, some of them you're not. What I like to do is think about it like a party. Right? And so all my thoughts are my party guests, and then whatever meditation technique you're using, that becomes your guest of honor. If you're using the breath, that's your guest of honor. If you're using a mantra like we do at Ziva, that's your guest of honor. But all the other guests are allowed to be there.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Good.
You know what's funny is I think back on this whole I need to silence my mind thing, and I think a lot of it is kind of this distillation process where it's like, okay, I read all these things from these meditation people, and these guys talked about this state of nirvana where everything disappeared and I disappeared and there were no thoughts and this, that, and the other. So great, okay, let's take that. That's the goal of meditation.
Yes.
So like everybody, this is meditation. It's just like, yo, dude, that guy spent 30 years sitting on his ass, right? And he had that for a moment and it transformed him forever. He didn't do it coming off the frickin', the tax accountant meeting.
Yes.
It's unfair to hold yourself to that. And even that's a trap, right? You look at all the classic Buddhist texts. It's not like, okay, I had this nirvana moment. Now every time I sit down, I want to go back to that nirvana moment because that was bliss and now I'm suffering trying to go back there.
Yes.
Move on.
Yes.
Right? So the party and the guest, I love that analogy, and it's so easy.
Yeah.
Right? There's sound right now.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, my toe itches. I'm such a loser. I can't believe I can't meditate. My toe itches.
No, you just include it in.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, because we in the West are very goal-oriented, we're very achievement-focused, and so we've done that with meditation. Okay, well, what's the point? What's the goal? What's the fastest way to get there? And so what I try to encourage my students to do is, don't try to meditate. Do or do not. There is no try. Yoda had it right. You don't try to act. You don't try to sing. You don't try to date. You don't try to orgasm. If you think about bliss and nirvana as the orgasm of meditation, you don't start with that. There has to be a lot of conditions leading up to that orgasm. Low light, feeling like you're not being observed, trust, comfortability, safety, maybe a little bit of dinner, So we have to kind of do the foreplay that is meditation. We can't expect to go right to the goal, which isn't even really a goal.
Which is a funny comparison, because a lot of people in sex are just like, quickest path to O and move on. Let's go watch our show. Right, and that's why sex has become really weird too. It's about relaxing into it and allowing and all these wonderful things. So, listening to this and being a stressed out, busy person in my car, or my home, or wherever I'm listening to this, right? Going, okay, that sounds interesting, but I'm still a little afraid. How do I toe into meditation, or is there no toe in? Like, you jump.
I have a little bit of mixed feelings on this, because I feel very strongly that meditation is like any other skill, and it takes a little bit of practice and a good teacher, and if you're willing to invest a bit of time, then it can be ridiculously easy and enjoyable. But I feel like meditation is this thing that we feel like, oh, well, they taught it that one day in 10th grade and I was absent that day. And so everyone else knows how to meditate, and I secretly am just going to pretend like I already know how to do it.
Let's close my eyes.
Yeah, I'll just close my eyes and pretend to look cool, make some fancy fingers on Instagram. But it's like any other skill. And so I really believe that it's worth it to get a bit of instruction. And yes, I know I'm a meditation teacher, so I'm biased. And again, this is your brain that we're talking about. So I think it's worth the investment. However, I do think that if you want to just kind of dip your toe in the water, I have a bunch of guided visualizations on our YouTube channel. I have a bunch of, just guided visualizations where I'm walking you through those things that I just talked you through. And I think guided visualizations are probably the easiest way for someone to start. Just to be like, hey, this is 10 minutes that I'm taking for myself, where I'm not making dinner and I'm not working and I'm not asleep.
I'm gonna sit down.
Yeah, and just carving out that space, I think, can be step one. And then if people want to dive deeper, I actually created the world's first online meditation training, which I'm really proud of. It's called Ziva Mind, and it's 8 days. It's about 25 minutes a day of video training, and it's a matriculation. So each day's training builds upon the previous day. And by the end of that 8 days, you have a practice to take with you for life. You don't need me anymore. You don't need an app. You don't need finger symbols. You just need a chair. And so that's like a nice way, even if you don't have access to a teacher face-to-face, then you can learn at zivamind.com. But we're in an interesting time right now. Technology is advancing, and so there are apps now, and there are online trainings now, and so even people that wouldn't traditionally have access to these teachings now do.
And there's a lot of debate in the community, right, about how useful some of this is and how much it kind of distracts from like the real work or whatever it is, right? To me personally, I feel like, look, if you're bringing down stress in a given individual, hallelujah, right? Because they're about to blow up and the world's about to blow up, and they just, they flicked off one less person in traffic today. You've made the world a better place. However, from there's this path, whether you want to call it ascension or deeper dive into kind of the question of who am I, and really kind of the essence of some of the spiritual traditions that are kind of driven by these meditation practices or come from the meditation practices. And so there's always a place to go. Where do you see people going and finding direction? Like busy Manhattan people, busy urbanite people who are like, yes, I need this for edge. Do you see them softening and finding a personal path?
Yes. So my husband asked me a question many years ago when I was really starting Ziva, and he said, are you afraid to put candy coating on the medicine? And I thought about it, and I was like, absolutely not. And I really got clear, and I was like, yeah, I'll candy coat the medicine all day long. And I really don't care why people come to meditation. They could come to it because they want to look hotter. They could come to it because they want to look younger. They can come to it because they want to have better orgasms. And the beautiful thing that I've noticed is that it doesn't matter what sort of selfish, self-serving reason we come to the practice, the byproduct is always the same. People always become less stressed, they become more altruistic, they become more generous, because whether you like it or not, your dorsomedial prefrontal cortex starts attaching and lighting up and connecting to your insula, which is your empathy center. So the piece of your brain that's in charge of processing information about people that we perceive as separate starts connecting to the empathy center of your brain when you meditate, so you become less of a dick, whether you like it or not. And so if you're stressed, you just want to make more money and that's why you're meditating, great, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just keep rewiring.
Yeah, and over time, we become more compassionate, more kind. We start to see the unity. We start to see ourselves inside of others. And I've had a lot of students make big career shifts, where they're like, hey, why am I using my talents for this thing when I could actually be really making an impact towards, whatever they feel to be important at this moment in time.
Yeah, and then they get the clarity to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something twice that I know my listeners are, their ears perked up, and I can't let you off the hook here.
Uh-oh.
You said orgasm. Better orgasm, better sex.
Yeah.
You've experienced this through meditation. I think a lot of people in meditation practices have better intimacy. What's happening there?
Okay, so I started talking about meditation and sex because so many of my students came to me and they're like, Emily, what is going on? Like you made
Shit just changed.
Yeah, like you made some jokes about this at your intro talk, but I'm having like animalistic, raw experiences, and I've never heard the term animalistic in terms of meditation before. And so I started doing more and more research on it, and I realized that there's actually quite a bit of neuroscience behind this and backing this up. But it turns out when your body's stressed, you're basically in a fight or flight stress reaction. Your body's preparing for a predatory attack. So you have very little energy left for procreation or for pleasure. I mean, think about if you were in the middle of a football game and you broke your leg, it would be possible for you to finish that football game and not even notice that you had broken your leg. That's what adrenaline and cortisol does to us. It dampens our symptoms, it dampens our senses so that we can keep going. If that tiger bites us, it won't be so debilitating. And guess what sex is? It's decidedly a 5-sensory experience. And so if you have so much adrenaline and cortisol in your body, your senses are dampened, so you're not hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, feeling as deeply as you could. And just from a chemical standpoint, if women have too much cortisol in their bodies, they're physically incapable of orgasm. And if men have too much adrenaline, they're physically incapable of erection. So this isn't just like, oh, when I'm meditating, my chakras will align with my partner's chakras. Like there's actually some neuroscience behind it. So basically what I found with meditation is that you're getting rid of stress in your body and you have so much energy left for the creative. And sex can be a decidedly creative act. And that same thing that I was talking about the empathy, where like the insula and the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex connect to each other, that also helps you to see more of yourself inside of your partner, more of your partner inside of you. That combined with this increase in mirror neural activity, which mirror neurons are why porn is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Mirror neurons are basically the thing that allows you to watch something and feel like you're a part of the experience. Right? And so this gets heightened when we meditate as well. All the neural activity increases, but specifically this mirror neuron thing. And so what I like to think about it is that you become almost like your lover will think that you are psychic, where you're almost intuiting what their needs are before they know it. And the more you see them having pleasure, the more pleasure it brings you. And so it becomes this really beautiful upward generous spiral versus can we just get this over with so we can go back to Netflix?
Hurry up.
Yeah.
Hurry up.
Yeah.
You ready?
Let's do this. I'm ovulating.
Yeah, I'm ovulating, or you know what? I really need an orgasm right now. It's been a really long day, right? Instead of, and look, in the old days, there'd be candlelight, there'd be wine. You relax into it, right? Yeah. And so all these rituals around it, and I know people that, will smoke pot for intimacy. I know people that drink wine for intimacy. Great. What is it doing? It's relaxing you. Now, could you do that with something that is naturally built in that just drops you into that spot?
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole branch of meditation. Tantra is the whole branch of this.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. There are lineages and lineages of this stuff in India and China and Tibet. I mean, this has been around for thousands of years. We've forgotten most of it. Yeah. And fortunately, the traditions are alive and well still. So, yeah. So I love all of this. Now, we talked about this kind of pre-show. There's a couple groups. The people that are like, okay, I don't meditate, convince me. How do you approach someone like that with a meditation practice?
The main reasons that most people don't meditate is that they think they're too busy, they think they're falling asleep when they're doing it, or they're frustrated because they can't stop their minds from thinking. Those are the big 3 barriers to entry that I hear most of it. And we've talked about the thoughts already. We haven't really talked about the sleeping, but here's the Cliff's Notes answer, is that if you feel like you're falling into a bit of a sleepy place, it's possible that you're falling into a different state of consciousness besides sleep. So I really like to give people a long leash and say, if you're feeling a little sleepy, just let yourself fall into that.
Lean into it.
Yeah, and if you fall out of the chair, then you've fallen asleep, and then you just sit back up, no worries. But the busy thing is big, right? Because we think, well, I can't just sit there and waste my time, like I've got stuff to do. But so I really try to reframe this for people. And when people say to me, Emily, I'm too busy to meditate, I like to say, okay, well, do you have time to feel like crap? You know, or like my other favorite comeback is like, if Oprah has time to meditate, then you have time to meditate. And so it's really a question of what are we prioritizing, and do you have the training so that you don't feel like you're wasting your time? Because if you don't know what you're doing, then I would say it's kind of a waste of time.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's like, you know, I looked up some thing on the internet, and so I tried meditating, it didn't work. It's like, well, what lineage was it? What is it? There's tried and true ways to do these things. Right. And there's a lot of bullshit out there.
Yeah, there really is. And so that's another thing I would say, if you're gonna do it, then find a teacher that you respect, that you trust, that you, because it can be a very intimate relationship. So you want that, and I think the best way to learn is face-to-face from a teacher, for sure. But if you don't have that, then you know, there is the Ziva Mind, or there's online, there's Headspace, you know, there's apps out there that you can at least dip your toe into the water. But I think the main thing to say that people don't meditate is, it's reframing that, like, hey, once you get rid of the stress in your body, you're actually giving yourself time back because your brain is going to function so much more efficiently. Stress makes you stupid. Like, quite simply, stress is costing you something, because when you're stressed, your body starts preparing for an imaginary tiger attack. And so that's why you don't have your full, you know, faculties available to you when you're writing, when you're doing your work. So your to-do list that used to take you 5 or 6 hours might start to take you 3 or 4. You used to need 8 or 9 hours of sleep. You might start to need 6 or 7 because your sleep becomes more efficient. And once people understand that and understand the neuroscience behind it, then the return on investment becomes a no-brainer.
And that's the hard part, right? People don't save because they feel like, you know, today I got to get through today. I got to get through today. That's cortisol talking. You know, actually, when you said that, this visual came. You know those guys that like train by running with a parachute behind them? Imagine yourself running with a parachute behind you, and on the parachute it just says stupid, right?
Or stress.
Or, yeah, exactly. Like, that's what stress does, right?
Yes.
It's just
it's dragging you.
It sucks. It sucks. And most people live that way, and because everyone else lives that way, I feel like I would be really kind of weird to slow down and close my eyes when everyone else is panicking all around me. It feels self-indulgent, and it feels lazy.
Yes.
Right? That's the insanity of our culture, not of us as an individual, if we could do something about it.
And I think the selfish point is big, right? Because it feels selfish, it does. But I would argue that meditation is the least selfish thing that you could do. Because nobody wants a stressed out version of you. Your kids don't want stressed mom. Your husband doesn't want stressed wife. They want you happy. So it's actually a gift. You're giving everyone around you a gift when you do it. And I think, to elaborate on your point, people are afraid because they don't know who they're going to be without their stress. Most of us are so used to being motivated and driven by that adrenaline and cortisol and competition and fear that we're afraid that once that goes away, that we're just going to be like little bliss bunnies and wallowing around on the couch being like, I've got everything I need right here. Why would I ever go outside? But it's actually the opposite. You afford yourself the luxury of being able to move towards the positive versus away from the negative. And that is a much more sustainable and enjoyable way to live your life.
One of the things that I've noticed that I've had the privilege of seeing, and just in teaching Qigong and the things that I do, and you have meditation as your tool for this, is I've been around a lot of people in my life that it occurred to me that they do not know the last time they were actually deeply relaxed. And there's something very powerful in the moment where someone actually allows themselves to deeply relax for the first time in maybe 30 years. Shit goes crazy, right? Like, it's just, you cannot go back to being the same lunatic ever again, right? And if you do, you know you're being a lunatic now. Like, it's no longer in your operating system to say, okay, that's normal. And so meditation, in my experience, has been the quickest entry point into that deep relaxation where you just go, I'm home. And at that homecoming, you can't deny it, right? It's like that out of body experience and all that. It's like, okay, this is an experience. I've had it. It's here with me forever.
Yeah. I feel more relaxed just you asking me that question.
Right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, because you've been there, right? Because you've elicited that state in yourself through your practice, and anyone who's been there can be like, oh yeah. Yeah, and we don't give ourselves permission. You know, I got shit to do. You know, I've always got shit to do.
Yeah.
It's never gonna stop.
You know what's interesting though is that I never hear busy people say that they're busy. And so if you're telling yourself a story of how busy you are, it just maybe call yourself on your story a little bit and just say, you know what, maybe I like feeling this important because of this pile of things that I have to do. But if you really look at the high achievers, you know, the people that are really changing the world, you know, like the Oprah Winfreys and the Steven Spielbergs, like I bet they don't wake up and be like, oh, I'm so busy.
Oh, today's so stressful.
They just execute.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny is in meditation, I found something. I was a good student in school once I decided to be a good student. But yeah, it's just a decision away, right? It's like you become a meditator when you decide you're going to meditate, not when you try things, right? Like Yoda would say. But I used to pretend to be busy because my dad would come in and be like, hey, what are you doing? You doing homework? I'd be like, I finished my homework. He was like, then do some more homework. I'm like, what? Do some other shit. And I was like, what?
Why?
So yeah, because he was like overachiever, like immigrant, like, you know, we came over here, like, you know, I did all this for you to, you know, succeed.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. You know, straight A's. But like one time in meditation, it occurred to me that I had spent 15 years of my life pretending to be busy for a father who's not even watching, right? Because I needed to kind of uphold that, and how much energy and time and life force went into this kind of perpetuating this facade for somebody else.
Wow.
Right? And it happened in a deep, relaxed state, right? Where you're like, and so those are the types of things that happen in meditation that are absolute hacks into the operating system. You find the virus and you're like, oh.
Delete.
Yeah.
That's huge, Pedram. Thank you for sharing that, because I bet you're not alone. I bet there's lots of people who are pretending to be busy to make their parents happy, and that's a decision they made 15 years ago and haven't re-examined it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like, okay, I realize that if I look busy, they get off my back.
Yeah.
Right? That's actually why I got straight A's all through school. It was like, hey, you know what? If I get straight A's, they all shut the fuck up. This is great.
Yeah.
Right? I'm your star A student.
Yeah, and then I can go chill.
Now I can go chill or play basketball or whatever, right? And so I just beat them at their own game, but then I realized that the consequence to that was this neurosis that I had to find in meditation. Was like, oh wow, that's not healthy. And we all have that. Sure. We all have that.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm not any crazier than you.
Maybe a little.
Maybe a little. Actually, a lot. Yeah.
The best kind of crazy.
The best kind of crazy. The kind that acknowledges and leans into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let your freak flag fly.
That's it. So I love what you're doing. I love everything about your message and the way you've packaged it and the way you are just helping people authentically just do what they do. So
thank you.
Ziva Meditation. Check it out.
Yeah.
Check it out. I think it's great. Listen, I'm a meditation teacher. I'm endorsing someone as a meditation teacher. This means something, right? There's no competitive bullshit here, right? If this can help you, have her help you, right? That's the point. And so you've helped thousands, and I love the fact that you have.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And coming from you, it's high praise. And thank you for the work that you're doing and for inviting me to be here.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right.